So I've been enjoying doing the digital paintings, so I want to try a traditional one. So that's what's going to be going in the background as sort of the speed paint. But while that's going, I kind of wanted to chat about my comic and what's been going on with that. So let's just get into it. So earlier, I did make a video saying about kind of all the types of projects I wanted to do and like had sort of in my mind for the future, or like the near future, I guess. And I did mention a couple of different mediums like animations, comics, novels, video games, I believe, that type of thing. But basically, I ended up deciding I will do the comic first. And basically, for those who don't know, it's been the same project the whole time, just a couple of different mediums that I want to end up doing it in. It's always been the same project. I am not doing like multiple projects at once. Obviously, that would be like wild. Yeah, so it's like a supernatural, borderline sci-fi. I'd say leaning more towards supernatural, like maybe a little fantasy, kind of like action, adventure, that type of thing. Basically, the world is like there's these fantastical aliens, and like, there's politics and all their societies and stuff, and there's magic and all that. So that's kind of like the world, but it's set in like current day modern society on Earth. But there also happens to be these things existing in it and around it. So that's kind of the general world. And for like the process of it, like I've been sort of writing scripts, and I plan to like do the scripts, then the thumbnailing and the drawing process basically. So write first, then draw is basically what I've been doing, which is a pretty common thing in comics. And I have been struggling with like kind of how much do I write before I start drawing. Like obviously I've been like designing some characters and stuff. I don't mean like drawing like the assets and stuff that I'll be needing, or like references. I mean like literally drawing like the pages or the panels and stuff. 'Cause like I'm still towards like the pretty beginning of the story, so I don't, and I'm doing a lot of changes, so I don't want to like draw something and then have to change it, because that has happened to me before where I kind of like thumbnailed like an entire like 50 panel episode, and then I ended up not choosing that point of the story to start as the beginning. But I mean, it was fine. At least it was just the thumbnails, or I would say it was actually more of a rough sketch, and some, I had written all the dialogue and stuff, whatever. But it's easier to start a fresh writing document than to like redraw panels, or like I'm not worried about having to redraw entire chapters or like cutting out entire chapters I've drawn. I'm more worried that I'll like draw like 5 chapters, but then, or no, like draw 10 chapters, but then by chapter 10 I realized I should have like foreshadowed something in like chapter 5, or like had a parallel from chapter 5 at like the beginning of chapter 5, and then I didn't have that, but I don't want to go in and add that, and then like you get it, you get the idea. Basically that's what I'm kind of struggling with. And I mean, I'm not like, it's not like stopping me from like, I mean, it's stopping me a little bit from drawing too much, because I do like want to just go ahead and draw like the first couple pages, but I'm like, no, I can't. And like some of you may say like, oh, surely it would be just small changes that would have to be made, surely it wouldn't do any harm. Like, I mean, how many changes could possibly be done? No, you haven't seen what I've been writing. I've rewritten the beginning so many times. I cannot draw the first couple of pages until I have like the solid story. I cannot. I've rewritten it so many times, and like every time I think this is it, this is the last time, and every time it like I'll come back and it'll be like, no, I can't. Like I'll come back with a better idea. And to in my defense, every time it is better that I rewrite it, it does actually get better. But you know, yeah. But it was, kind of going off of that, I have decided to make this draft that I'm currently writing the final draft of the story. Because, I have made a lot of changes, and then there was a period where I was like, I'm making so many changes while I'm writing, I need to stop and just keep writing. And like, even if I realize later that like something I wrote in like towards the beginning is like needs to be changed, I'll just make a note of it but not actually change it, and I'll just do that in revisions. And like, it kind of worked. Like, I did stick to that. And like, I just wrote, and I wrote a lot actually, and I did, occasionally make notes, but it was helpful to just be like, I'll just fix this later, I don't have to worry about it now. I was able to get more writing done, like get farther into the story, because I was just like, I can just fix this later, it doesn't have to be perfect right now. So that it did work in that sense. And it worked for that draft of the story. But now I've moved on to a new draft, and I'm like, okay, now that I allowed myself to do that, and I'm on this new draft now, like, this has to be the final draft, so I'm gonna allow myself to make the edits while I'm writing the notes that I like made in the past couple drafts. I'm gonna put them into place in this draft. I'm not gonna just write, because I want this one to be the final one. Please, please. I need it to be written, please. I'm going a little crazy over here, just a little crazy. Please. And when you're like, oh, could you hear my cat meow? Like, I could make an entire video, and I probably will, about how, like, on just the beginning, on how many drafts I had. Because, just to remind you, or like, for anyone new here, this story has been sitting in my brain for about a decade. Yeah, just let that, sink in here. And like, I mean, it's not just been sitting there, like, I have been writing the whole 10 years, but I don't need to go into it right now. But basically, especially recently, especially this year specifically, because I've been writing so consistently this year, because my goal is to like finish writing, at least some part of it, like the first season of it or something by the end of this year. Finish something by the end of this year. And like, so I've just been rewriting, writing some more, editing, all that kind of stuff. Like, I sound like I'm complaining, but I'm not. I'm just describing, like, my writing process. Like, basically, this entire year I've been kind of, like, honing my writing process, and it has changed, like, multiple times, in a good way. Like, every time it's changed, it's gotten better. Like, the writing itself and my writing process. Like, I've definitely figured out more about myself as a writer this year than probably any other year. Like, I've really been working on my craft and like researching the literal process of writing, watching videos, going to like free classes, like reading articles, like all that kind of stuff. And like, and actually of course doing the writing part and like practicing and like learning, what to look for, like when editing, honing my eyes so I can like see my writing objectively, as a reader versus as a writer. And like, I can tell like each time I come back to it, like I'm not like starting over. Like, I'm building upon what I have each time. I'm not like starting from zero, because it gets better each time. But that being said, I don't need to quote unquote start over again. This is it. This is the one. I know I said earlier that I've said this was the final draft before, but no. I swear this time is the one. Like I'm not joking this time. Uh like because the other times I was like kind of unsure, but this time I've done like a lot of like writing and like story work and stuff. And this time, like when I wrote the beginning, like the current beginning that I have for this final draft, like I can go into it more in detail in another video and like maybe show you a bit more of the actual example of it, without spoiling too much. But like basically I started writing it and like I was able to recognize when I needed like a reference for something. And like I guess I should explain a reference in a bit, but I'll explain that in a second. Like I know when I needed a reference, and like I would look at the things I needed to like inspire certain spots, and like it didn't like the image wasn't one to one. Obviously I don't want the same thing, but like it started the creative like thinking in my brain, which it's kind of weird how like analyzing something, with my, analysis logical brain somehow sparked creativity and like the flow of creativeness, like left versus right brain. But they are, kind of connected in that way, and like analyzing something that's creative like got me creative. And like I started writing it and I was like I just kept getting like ideas for like images, not like images like of panels and like how they could flow together or like be spaced on the page together. And like I was getting just like great ideas for it. And like generally I have ideas for panels usually, like the process of script writing and like coming up with the panel descriptions isn't too difficult. I mean the writing, like the story part is difficult, but like the coming up with the images to go with the story is not difficult to me. So I usually get panel ideas when I'm writing, but like these were like better than usual. Like they weren't just images that happened to match what was happening. They were like symbolic, and like I had like breaking panels. I was like breaking the panels sometimes and like having them flow together, and like how it was like symbolizing how it was like all connected and stuff. And I mean, obviously you guys have no idea what I'm talking about because you haven't seen the script or the comic itself, so you probably might not understand what I'm saying. But basically the general idea of what I'm trying to get across is that like the writing was really good this time, and like it came like easier than it has in the past. And like that definitely shows that there's progress, and like how even though like I have quote unquote started over a couple of times, this year, I'm not like at the same place I was at the beginning of the year. And like my my writing process is different, and like I can like see and analyze better as like a writer. And like I don't know, the writing itself, I'm like writing definitely more often than I used to. I mean, way more often than I used to. But yeah, I could go on and on about that. But I don't necessarily want to get too into like the writing process right now, or like make a video about it like recently, because I haven't like finished writing the story yet, so I feel like I feel like there's still going to be more changes in my process before I finish the story. So I want to wait until then, or wait until I start the next story and maybe apply the same writing process of this story to my next story. And then, once I confirm that, it has worked, or I have completed a thing, then, I'd maybe make a video about it. 'Cause, otherwise I'd be I wouldn't feel like I'm qualified. But once I finish something, then I'd think about doing it. I mean, I definitely want to do it, but, later. Anyways, maybe not qualified is not the best phrase, more like not ready, 'cause it's changed so many times. So whatever. That it's that's not important right now. Now talking about references, what I was talking about earlier is kind of taking inspiration from other media, obviously, but from other stories specifically. I like how such and such show or such and such comic did this beginning. I think it hooked the readers well. Or I like how such and such story, showed talking objects, or side characters or sidekicks, stuff like that. Where I'm not and it's through stuff I'm already consuming, shows and comics I'm already reading and watching, but I'll recognize it, and then I'll make a note of it, and then later when I'm writing and I'm wait, I know a story that did something similar to this. How did they handle this sort of situation that I remember liking it? So then I'll rewatch that episode or reread that chapter or whatever, and be okay, they wrote it such and such way. I could write it such and such way, but for fitting more for my story than their story. But, and the reason, I feel like references are important is because you can't exactly Google how to write talking objects. I mean, you could, but I don't feel like you would come up with very good, or I just don't feel like the answers would be very good. I feel like you have to do kind of your own field research, quote unquote, that kind of shows the stuff you're looking for. Because sometimes the stuff in your story is very niche and specific, and not every story has it, talking objects. So you have to find a story that does it in a way you like. So sometimes it is kind of hard to find that, but that's why I wouldn't only consume things within your genre either, to look for it, because I generally don't stay in one genre when consuming media, and that's kind of how I come across all this stuff. Because if I stayed within the supernatural genre, hoping that I would find stuff to inspire my story, I probably wouldn't be able to find a lot of the stuff. But I'm looking into comedy, horror, or fantasy, or modern contemporary fantasy, or slice of life even. You have to look in other places, because not all, an exact copy of your story is not going to appear somewhere in your same genre, or in any genre. You have to find bits and pieces of it everywhere. And this, field research is, also pretty fun because I'm not like, it's not like school research. Like, I feel like, sometimes we need to reframe, the way we think of certain phrases or things. And like, research doesn't have to necessarily be, boring. Like, research can be rewatching your favorite show to like, find like the lessons and how they handled like teaching the audience different lessons or the characters different lessons, things like that, like, Avatar or something. Um, or, also, just watching like YouTube videos about, writing, how to write certain things or writing other things, or, buying craft books where they tell you how to write certain things. But those well, I don't do those two because I haven't found them to be as helpful. Um, well, except for a couple of YouTube videos. I haven't tried the craft videos solely because I don't really have the free cash to like buy a book. Um, and then the YouTube videos, well, I wouldn't say they weren't helpful. Like, some of them are helpful, but some of them aren't. Obviously, I just, what I mean is, I said it was less helpful is because you have to weed through a lot of stuff, go through the unhelpful stuff to find the helpful stuff, whereas if it's just a story, you can just kind of go straight to the helpful stuff if it's like a show you've already watched and consumed. So that, not that there aren't helpful YouTube videos out there. I feel like I feel like that's like sacrilegious to say that as as a YouTuber. They're out there, definitely. They're out there somewhere. It's just kind of like what I was saying about the Googling thing, where you can also read articles and stuff, but like, you're gonna have to weed through a lot of bad articles first before you find a good article. And like I'll give an example. Like, the other day, I was trying to like work through like what lessons I wanted to teach my characters, and like to kind of get a list of like ideas going in my brain, like just a list to, you know, get me started, somewhere on the internet. I googled like multiple, you know, phrases, multiple things, searched through so many articles. I end up on like a couple different articles about like Avatar and the lessons Avatar has taught, or like, lessons cartoon characters or Disney characters have taught us and stuff. And like, I don't know, and these were not all from like the same website. They were all from different websites, and I don't know who's writing these, but like, oh my god, like 90% of them are just blatantly wrong. Like, one of them was like, for the what Disney Cinderella taught us was like, hard work can like make you accomplish anything, and the explanation was that because she completes the list of impossible tasks in order to go to the ball. And that's not what happened in Cinderella. That's not what happened. The fairy godmother came. That's how she got to the ball. 'Cause like, what? Did we not watch the same Disney animated Cinderella? Like, the lesson in Cinderella is like, be kind even if those people aren't kind to you. That's the lesson, not hard work. 'Cause I mean, she did work hard. I'm not saying she didn't, but like, that's not how she got to the ball. There was a fairy godmother. Like, I'm pretty sure she did complete this stuff, and then the people, her family, still told her no, even though she finished. And then they like ripped apart her dress or whatever. Like, it was stuff like that where it was like blatantly wrong. Or it was like things that are like not actually lessons, where it was like, equality is good, or like, respect other cultures. And I'm like, nope, those are just human things. Like, those weren't and like, like, I know those can be lessons, but in the context of like the show or movie they were in, like, it was for like an episode of Avatar, and I was like, that was not the lesson of that episode. Like, I, I shouldn't be, I don't know if I should continue ranting about this, but like, the point I'm trying to make is you gotta, depending on, where you look, you gotta weed through a lot of shit to like get to the good stuff. So that's why, well, not everywhere. Like I said, like, if you just Google it, like, that's why I'm saying don't just Google, like, the things that to help you with writing. Don't just Google them. Like, you're gonna have to do some field research on your own. But, like, you can sure put it in, search it on YouTube, and I'm sure, like, if you're not sure how to, like, analyze, like, a story, or you're not sure how to, like, look for the things and do the field research, I'd say look at, like, those YouTube channels that, like, do video essays and, like, analyze certain shows or movies. Like, look at those and look at what they say and, like, look at what they're looking for and speaking about, and then try to replicate that when you do your field research about your show or whatever, you know, to do that to, like, get an idea of what you're supposed to be looking for. 'Cause those were very helpful. Like, if you don't necessarily want to go back and rewatch or reread, search on YouTube a video essay of the show that you think did a certain thing well, and I guarantee you there's a video essay on the thing you think they did well. Like, Dungeon Meshi or Delicious in Dungeon, whatever. Or Avatar. There are definitely videos out there, video essays, that, like, talk about what you think they did good. And they kind of will tell, they kind of did the research for you, So that was very helpful. That's, like, I know those are, like, more talking about the show and they're not actually teaching writing, but I was taught a lot about writing through watching that, and it was kind of like having, like, going to a little seminar about, the writing process of a certain show or movie, So, yeah. Anyways, we got a little off track, but basically, I've been working on writing the story, and, like I said, I've been kind of making the edits as I go, like, kind of implementing them from the notes I had from the past draft. And, like, I mean, I thought I was a little scared it was going to hold me back like it had in the past, but I don't think that's been the case. I've been, like, I mean, there have been a couple of setbacks, but not because of that, but mainly just because, like, I've been, having to figure out a bit more of, like, how I want things in the plot to connect, or, like, how I want to portray certain character things and stuff. Basically, and, like, the notes weren't necessarily to make any major changes. It was more like like, the majority of the edits were, like, cutting out, like, quote-unquote unnecessary scenes, or, like, extra scenes where I could, like, the purpose of those scenes, they had a purpose, but the purpose could be shown later, because what I'm trying to do is, like, get to the, like, inciting incident faster, because, in past drafts, it's been kind of slow to get there. So I've been cutting out a scene every now and then, and I started the story, like, way, or not super later, but, like, I'd say, like, a good 3 to 4 scenes later than I had in the last draft. Just to, like, I just really need to get the inciting incident sooner. Well, I just feel like it would be better or more interesting because I do have a tendency to like, what's the word? It's not overwrite, but it's like, I don't know, someone will know what the word is. It's like the opposite of writing too little. Like, I'll just say overwriting. Because I have these characters and like, you know, I have all these images of them in my head, and I can just go on a scene with them just talking to each other for like ever. Like, I could make them interact forever because I know their, you know, relationships with each other so well. But like, I have to have a purpose with it, and I have to know when to like have that sort of dialogue downtime and when I need to actually like move the plot forward. And generally the dialogue conversation should also move the plot forward. You know, basically I think I'm making the right decision by, you know, moving the inciting incident closer to the beginning and like, you know, even though I've cut out about like anywhere from like 5 to 8 scenes right now because I'm still in the very beginning. But I think it was necessary. I did have to like take a day to like think about it, to be like, do I really, like, am I really gonna do this? But I did end up deciding that it was for the best, and honestly I don't regret it because where I have the beginning right now, it's like slaying. It's so good. It's so good. I can't wait to share it, but I don't know when it will be shareable. So, but yeah, for the painting, I wanted to do like a sort of impressionist painting, and I think I kind of achieved that. Impressionist painting of little hands doing a heart, my hands doing a heart. I took the reference picture myself. It was very hard to take a picture of my own hands. I kind of like balanced it in my shirt and like took the picture. But yeah, the painting didn't take me too long, even though there was a lot of pushing and pulling. Like, I kept painting it, repainting it, painting it, repainting it, because I kept like not liking it, but I ended up liking it, so yeah. That's kind of all the time I have for this video. I should probably just, you know, put the rest of my ramblings in a different video to kind of split it up. But like, comment, and subscribe if you want to, I guess. I don't have any updates on anything else, so bye guys.